Hello, good afternoon. It's Mel Bundock here, and welcome to the first official episode of Big Vision TV. And today I'm joined by my friend Caspar Craven. And Caspar he's the sort of guest that I want to introduce to you every week. Somebody who has done something really extraordinary, really gone after their big goals and dreams and visions. But also has kind of overcome challenges and obstacles along the way. And so my intention is to bring to you every week fun people who's going to inspire you to perhaps plant some seeds of your own big vision and to do things in a completely different way. So I'm going to hand over to Caspar quickly. Now, before we get to the proper introductions, I want to just go straight into this. And I want to ask Caspar, can you take me to a moment in your life when you were kind of a bit of a crossroads, perhaps, and you thought, you know what, everything's got to change. I can see that if my path continues down this path, this is going to happen. But if I shake things up a bit, who knows what could happen. Sorry, just to kind of go straight in this. But let's just start, and then we can kind of come to the big introductions and everything later. Let's just take us to crossroads in your life.
But just before I dive into that, I want to say thank you very much for having me here. And I know this is your first one of these, so it's like super exciting, right? So I'm feeling privileged and honored to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you here. So yeah, can you think of that moment, Caspar, when?
I certainly can. So I'm casting my mind back to 2009. Okay. So my wife and I were in our mid-30s, and back then we had two young kids. They were 4 and 2. And I had a small consultancy business, and we weren't doing terribly well, is the bottom line. So the business was losing money, and I was working 16, 18 hours a day, barely saw my wife, barely saw the kids. And Nicola, my wife, and I, we were asking ourselves the question, is this all there is to life? Because it was like really hard. It was like dominated by arguments about money, about a relationship, not feeling guilty, not seeing the kids. And, we contrast it. It's like, you remember when you're back in your early 20s and you bounce out of bed in the morning, you're full of optimism and joy and energy. And it's like we were so far from that point that, it's like, really, this is the best life's got to offer. And so that was kind of where our journey to do things differently started from being in a pretty painful place, actually.
So just tell us, and I think a lot of us can identify with that, that you kind of you get married and you have the children, then all of a sudden life just becomes a bit like, oh, okay, I didn't really expect it to be like this. And I think a lot of us, just continue with that because you just think that's what life is all about. You get married and you have babies and this is what happens. And you could have continued like that, couldn't you?
We could have continued. I kind of like refer to it as like life at sort of 60 degrees. And it's not like it's like sizzling hot. And it's not that it's so bad that it's completely broken. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle, sort of like a tepid, warm sort of level. And it's just, it was just like, this just like, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't fulfilling. And we could have continued, but we got to a point where we almost broke. And that was kind of the catalyst where we said, well, tell you what, let's just go and do something completely different with our lives. And that was kind of where it all started for us.
So this is 2009, and so obviously I've given the game away already as to what you actually went on to do in the title of this broadcast. So it didn't happen overnight, did it? The cunning plan.
No. So shall I tell you where the whole story came from?
Yes, please do.
So it was the 13th of June, 2009. I can remember.
You know the exact date.
I know the exact date. I can picture the moment. And it was my sister's 40th birthday party. And we're sitting in her garden in Kent. And it's a beautiful sunny day. And we're sitting outside having a picnic. The kids are playing. And my brother-in-law told us about this family who sailed around the world. And then in the next sentence, he basically said what a completely crazy idea it was. And that was the seed of an idea that caught the imagination of both Nicola, my wife, and myself. And in truth, back then, it was an utterly crazy idea because we didn't have the money because it costs a truckload of money to go and get a boat.
So you didn't even have the boat at this time?
didn't have a boat, didn't have the money. Nicola, she had sailed twice at that point, and she'd been seasick both times. And so, it was in many ways an utterly crazy plan. But we came up with this idea, said, let's go and do something that's fundamentally different with our lives. And we kind of spent 6 months after that crafting out how do we want life to be different. And literally every weekend we'd sit down and we'd ask each other, it's like, what do we really want from life? What do we want for us? What do we want for our children? And we came up with this vision statement. It was like handwritten, and we put it on the kitchen wall, and we told everyone, this is what we're going to go and do. On the 1st of August 2014, we're heading off to go and sail around the world. And everybody just laughed because it was crazy for all those reasons. But we just made that decision. That was what was going to happen, and nothing was going to stand in our way. We were going to go and do that. So that was pretty much the starting point.
That was the starting point. And then how did this begin to unfold? Tell us, because, okay, actually, before you tell me that,
okay,
I love that, because you had your goal, you had your vision, you started with the end in mind. This is what we're going to be doing.
Right.
And a lot of people, so this is what I kind of teach people through doing vision boards and all that goal setting kind of stuff, that you've got to have a goal that you're aiming for, because then you can then make your plan. So rather than a vision board, you had a vision statement. This is what we're going to be doing.
Absolutely. And, we didn't just have the vision. So we had the vision statement, which was like handwritten out. And we had on there a date when we were going to go and leave. We had the amount of money that we needed to create. We talked about how we were going to go and do things. And then really importantly, what we were going to do afterwards. Yes. And we created this, we had this map of the world, and we sketched out our route around the world, and like literally filled the kitchen wall. And that's what we're going to go and do.
So you made a giant living vision board.
You made a giant living, because it's that wonderful phrase, what you see is all there is. That what there is around you is what like influences your subconscious and just directs your whole mind. And to go to an extreme, I would come down at 5:30 every morning, and I would spend about 5 or 10 minutes doing this exercise that I call it's called the theatre of your mind. And just see everything that was going to happen, and just create it in rich, vivid detail. And I know you're this would be exactly all the sort of stuff as well. Yeah. That's basically what we do. We just imagine the future, and that 5-year period, which we'll come on to in a moment, I'm sure, of how we made things happen. There were far more failures than there were successes, but. I was talking about, we had this picture of where we wanted to go, and we knew why we wanted to go there as well. Our reason
that's so important, the why.
It really is. I mean, for us, it was to create magical, life-changing experiences for us and our children. And that was the thing that I was talking about. That was literally pulling us forwards into the future. So that was the thing that changed everything, making that decision and knowing why we wanted to go and do that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So all the steps are there. You had the vision, and I love that theatre. I've not heard of that, it called that before, but I do pretty much exactly the same thing myself every morning. I think about my goals and my visions, and I actually call them mind movies. So they're very similar. And even with my vision boards, I focus on a particular aspect of the vision board, and I bring that to life in my mind. So it's an identical process. That power of your mind is so important. And had you been studying this kind of like this mind inner work?
Back then I hadn't been. So to take you on a little bit of the journey. So for the first 2 years, we said that's what we want to go and do. And nothing fundamentally changed in my business. So
what was your business at the time? Sorry, consultancy, did you say?
Yeah, so basically we had a data analytics consultancy. So we provided a managed service around data analytics to companies like IBM and Microsoft. So we were only a small company. There's about 8-10 people that we had at that stage. So that was the business. But for those 2 years, I thought I was changing things in my business. And I came to realize that actually I wasn't really doing anything at all. So we got to 2011, and I've been looking at this vision and all these things we wanted to go and do, and nothing had changed. So then that was the point that I started to immerse myself in learning and say, how do I go and learn from people who are far smarter than I am, and go and learn what to do to build the businesses, to go and create the money that we need to make it happen. And that was where I started to learn a lot more about these techniques and the psychology of how you do these things and how you make stuff happen. So the first bit I kind of made up on my own, and then after that, then afterwards, then I started to get serious about it, shall we say?
And they probably taught you very similar things that you were doing already.
Pretty much, but there was a lot more to it. I mean, it's funny. Yeah. So one of the things I learned about was, I started going and finding people who built more successful businesses than I had. And I started taking all those ideas, and I remember implementing them all in my business. And I was like very, very ego driven back then. And I was like, how do I go and apply all these things? And I just started charging through my business and implementing these things. And I got to the point where everyone in my business threatened to leave because I was just driving them crazy. So then that forced me to go back and learn again and say, okay, how do I go and build stuff with other people and engage the team, take people on the journey?
And it's so important, I think, when you are embarking on this journey of personal development, if you have a goal, if there's something you want to do, absolutely go and learn from other people who are doing it. Read about entrepreneurs and successful people. And I firmly believe that, if anyone else has done it before you, then there's no reason why you can't do it too. You just have to learn how they did it. Surround yourself with mentors and clever people who
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, one of those things about the people you hang around with, that whole influence thing, I think that's the single most important factor, is putting yourself in the right environment, the right community of people who are going to take
Absolutely. And I know that you're a big Tony Robbins fan as well, aren't you? So it's a Tony Robbins quote, isn't it? Proximity is power. So, who you surround yourself with directly. So if you're hanging out with people who are moaning and negative, and just go and find some new people to hang out with.
Absolutely. And, but the thing is, some people may have in their lives people who they can't do anything about. They are, kind of permanent fixtures in their life, should we say? And so the thing is, it's like sometimes it's dialing down people like that, and then dialing up people who lift you up and energize you, and all those sorts of things. So we've all got people like that in our lives, right? So
so tell us about the next bit. What happened next? How did because another child came along. Was it he or she? Another child came along. Because
yes,
that's right. Yeah.
2012. So we had our third child.
Okay.
And, everybody at that point said, "Look, there's no way you're going. There's no way you can take a 2-year-old on a boat." And by the way, most people roll their eyes when I say I sail around the world with 3 kids under the age of 10. And they say, how do you manage on board with a 2-year-olds?
Most people struggle to take 3 children on the underground.
So here's the thing, right? So actually, it's far easier on a boat. I'm standing here in our lounge, by the way, and as I'm moving around a little bit, I've got Lego under my feet, and it's like it's exactly like that on a boat, because our little one, she would get her big green bucket of Lego and she just tip it out everywhere, and you come downstairs in bare feet. I mean, that stuff hurts, right? So but yeah, what we did in that sort of 5 years of preparation to go away, we created our boat rules around how do we all work together as a team on the boat. And one of those things was all around the safety side of things. So everyone wore life jackets at all time, children and adults, everybody's clipped on. And we just created and ingrained these rules. So they were used to that. But yeah, the kids are going to have tantrums wherever they are in the world, and they're going to throw their toys and they're going to do all that stuff. So it's just parenting, but you just happen to be on a boat. So
yeah, okay. So we're on the boat now. Let's get back off the boat again.
Okay.
So I bought that in when I bought third child in 2012. So so people around you are kind of saying, yeah, it's never going to happen. You crazy Cravens with your big dreams.
Yep.
How did you deal with the naysayers and the people who just, whatever?
That's such a great question. It really is. So look, there's 2 things on that. So the first thing is that I think when you hear the naysayers, then quite often the people are sharing their beliefs and also their concerns for you. They're looking out for you. It doesn't always sound like that. It sounds like they're being critical.
No, of course.
The way that we approached that is every single naysayer we had, we didn't dismiss them, we didn't ignore them. We wrote down all those things. So all the concerns around what happened if we had a medical emergency? What do we do about homeschooling? What would happen if our engine broke? All those things happen, by the way. And so they weren't things to be dismissive of. They were things to think about. Because when you're in that situation, as we were, the best qualified people to come to a conclusion on it was us. So we went and did huge amounts of research. So my wife is a planner, and literally all the medical side of things, all the schooling side of things, all the boat maintenance side of things, we just went into massive detail around it. So that was kind of how we dealt with the naysayers. One, yeah, people are coming from a place they want to help. It doesn't always sound like that, but that's what they're doing. But actually, they're flagging up things for us to think about and for us to come to our own conclusions on. Say, how do we get comfortable with these risks and the things that are going to happen to us? So.
And then you said even at the beginning you didn't even kind of have the money for the boat, so you so if I'm hearing correctly, you went in and you did some transformational work with the business to kind of build that up again, and so you had financial goals. Obviously you needed money behind you to kind of do this. You said that that the money was dwindling. What was kind of the next step where how did you get the boat? And how did all of that happen?
So it's expensive doing what we're doing, and we didn't have the money. So the point of
so just before here's the thing. I think, and I've been talking a lot about that in the last few weeks about tapping into abundance, because a lot of people use money as an excuse as to why they can't make their goals and their dreams happen. Now you knew you needed money, but I guess you had that end goal. You wanted to do this, and you knew what you wanted to do afterwards. You were quite meticulous in your plan, so you knew you had to raise the finances. How did you go about doing that?
Okay, so the first thing is all about mindset and just developing what I call a test and measure mindset, that I would try things, and some things would work and I'd stop doing them, and other things would work and I'd do more of them. So what I seem to what I did with my core business was that we developed the different ways to build the team and build on people's strengths. We did a lot of work around values and getting really clear on where the business was going and the mission and why it was important. And it moved from being what I would describe before as an ego-driven business to a values-based business, embracing everybody in the team. There were a couple. I mean, there's a lot to that, but there was a couple of fundamental things that we did in there around building on people's strengths and getting them into the zone where they were doing the things that they absolutely loved doing and were best at doing, where they were faster than anybody else out there. And once we started to tap into the power of each individual person and sort of unleash them to go and do their thing, the gaps in the business became very obvious, but then you can recruit for those gaps. So
this reminds me of a book I'm reading at the moment, Traction. I think it sounds exactly the same thing, but identifying core strengths in a team. And yeah, totally. Sorry, I interrupted you. It just reminded me of that. Yeah.
So that was what we did to get the business up and running, because what we also had to do was to be either able to sell the business before we went to realize money, or get in place an incredible team of people who would run the business in my absence. And what we actually ended up doing was putting an incredible team of people in place, so the business carried on running whilst I stepped out of it. We ended up selling that business as we sailed across the Pacific Ocean. But as you do, I'll talk about it in a minute if you like. But we also created two other businesses which go on to become $1 million businesses in that 5-year period. And the defining factor was creating these businesses that could run without me. And it comes back to that core learning of how do you get people to play to their strengths and do these amazing things. And also, interestingly, it was the same way that we homeschooled and educated the kids on the boat. It was exactly the same principle.
And had you homeschooled before you went on the boat?
No.
No. And they're back in school now, aren't they?
They're back in school now. Yeah, that was back in the fire.
Okay, so amazing. So let's move now to kind of, right, it's all kind of, the business is in great shape, and you've got your boat. And I remember I met Nicola, your wife, and I think you said she'd done 2 sailing trips and she'd been seasick. She'd never done anything like this, whereas you had sailed before.
Yeah, so I'd sailed around the world before. And interesting, by the way, you mentioned about the boats. We only actually bought the boat 10 weeks before we left, which is a pretty short period of time before we go. So we had a huge amount of refit work to do to get her ready. And another little twist on that, just before we went, actually, I ran the London Marathon, raised about £5,000 for the NSPCC, but I completely stuffed up my back. So I had pretty major back surgery 5 weeks before we left. So, just to throw another little spanner in the works.
So many reasons why you could have actually, let's just put this off. But you had your date. The date was etched in stone, wasn't it?
Exactly right. And that's what I sort of say to everyone is, get that. It's a similar message to yourself. It's like, what's that clear goal? Where are you going to? And once you lock onto that, and that's the thing you've decided, then you either find a way or you make a way, and you keep going until you get that result. So.
That's such a great message, and I hope everyone's kind of paying attention to that. I think let's just kind of pause here for a moment. This is so you and Nicola, pretty kind of average family, got your own business, things needed a bit of a shake up. And I wonder how many people watching this right now are in that situation where they're kind of thinking, life's just a bit, but there's this kind of little inkling of a dream or a vision that, that you may have, but it doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem realistic. I can't see how on earth that's going to happen. But I hope, just where we are now with Caspar and the journey that he's taking us on, is kind of inspiring people to just have just give yourself some time to think about, life beyond your 4 walls right now. What else is possible? What is out there? So, I'm now.
Just on that, I've lost track of the number of conversations I've had with people. They say, one day I'll go and do this. And it's like, well, why isn't one day today?
Because of all the excuses, all the stories you tell yourself. I haven't got time on this, I'm that. They're just excuses. Then ultimately, it's an excuse.
We have so many friends, and I always talk about, in our life we get jolts. So a jolt for me is you hear about someone or some tragedy where someone who's suddenly got sick or someone who's died far too young. And, we have these jolts, and they force us into doing different things differently for a week or maybe 2 weeks. And then you go back to whatever you were doing before, and life carries on. And it's grabbing hold of life and saying, what's really important to me, to my family, and creating a plan to go and make that happen. And it's interesting because I think I became a better business person, and then my business benefited far more because I put family first and said, let's go and create those family goals, those family stories of what we wanted to go and do together, rather than saying, I will go and do that once we've got the money, which was always the way around. I had for create money and then we'll go and do cool family stuff. And it wasn't working. So it's like, well, tell you what, let's put family first. And that choice just literally changed everything.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I love everything about this story. And your vision, I'm speaking to the people watching, may not be to go sailing around the world. It may be something completely different. It's not everyone's cup of tea to go sailing around the world, but there is something crazy and wild that even if it's just, I don't know, so many things, just allow this to inspire you just to get started and dream a little.
The thing I always remember as well, so we live just outside London. I always remember sort of standing at the station platform. I'd catch the 6:22 in the morning, and I'd be standing there at the platform, standing there looking at my iPhone with a coffee on my one hand, and I'd look around, everybody else around me, they're doing exactly the same thing, and we're just going through the motions. And I just remember it's is this that whole thing? Is this all there is? It was just painful. Yeah. So that again, another catalyst. Grab hold of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So next bit of the story. Okay, so you've had this back surgery, you've run the London Marathon, you've only just bought your boat, the clock is ticking. I can imagine it was probably a bit chaotic.
It was because, well, yeah. So after the back surgery, I couldn't do anything. I was literally, I had to sort of like not move for 5 weeks. I was lying on my back, and that was the stage where everything was going on. And so we had to sell our car. We had to rent the house out. We had to hand over and get the teams running, not just one, but 3 different businesses. So to get that transition, and also get 3 children on a boat and start heading down to catch weather windows going across the Atlantic Ocean. So there was.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But the underpinning for how we did all of that was the stuff around teamwork and how do we work together as a team. So the thing that I used to transform the businesses was all around values and focusing on what's right and what's wrong rather than what's wrong. Same thing in the family context. We created family values and talked about how do we work together as a team. So, Nicola and I always joke about things that if it was down to me, nothing would ever get finished. If it was down to Nicola, nothing would ever get started. And it's that kind of interaction between us of how we managed to make things happen. So there was just a huge amount of that practical stuff, getting school books on the boat and loading the boat up with food, and
It's hectic with. I've only got 2 children, and and I think about sometimes just getting them out of the house in the morning is a challenge. Come on, put your shoes. How many times have I have to say to you, John, put your shoes on? Where's your coat? Where's this? And then they go, that's just trying to get them out of the house in the morning. I can't imagine what that must have been like to get ready to kind of. And how long were you actually at sea for?
So we were actually at sea for 2 years. So
it's 2 years that you left your home for.
So we rented out the home for 2 years, and literally we actually sailed 1.5 times around the world. So our route was we left the UK. We sailed down the European coast and France, Spain, Portugal, then across to the Canary Islands. And then from the Canary Islands, we did our first big ocean sailing across to the Caribbean. And then from there across to Panama through the Panama Canal.
Wow.
We spent about 6 months sailing across the Pacific until we reached Australia.
Gosh.
Australia, we sailed.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. So what was the longest stretch that you were at sea for without, hitting land?
3 weeks. So that was sailing from the Galapagos Islands to the Marquesa Islands in the Pacific. It's about 3,100 miles. And
amazing.
It was funny. You know that at some point, anyone who's got kids, they're going to turn around at some point and say, "Are we nearly there yet?" And it's like, nope, we've got another 3,000 miles to go. Buckle up.
And what about things like adverse weather conditions? There must have been some pretty hairy moments at sea.
Yeah, no, we had a few of those. You know that in 2 years around the world, you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff. So probably one of the most challenging was off the north coast of Colombia. We had pretty heavy winds and seas there. And also leaving South Africa as well, we had some pretty heavy seas there. The thing is, though, that the boat that we had was a really good, big, strong boat, and I've done a lot of sailing in heavy weather, and it's sailing a boat. It's a little bit like that saying, "There's no such thing as the wrong weather, just the wrong clothes." sailing a boat, there's no such thing as the wrong weather. There's just the wrong sails, and you just adjust the boat and you get yourself set up. And actually, when it's really, really rough, then actually I'm far happier out at sea than I am near land, because you just set the boat and the sails and you just ride it out, which I know will sound bizarre to some people listening. But the boats are designed to ride waves. So.
But I bet that you can use so many metaphors of your journey that you can apply to life in general, that, there are storms that we face in life, and it's just, I guess, so what would the sails be? The way you deal with it mentally and adjust your thoughts and your thinking, and I don't know. Absolutely. What would your take on that be?
Well, I think one of the biggest metaphors I always talk about is leaving the harbour. And so many people I know are waiting for things to be perfect before they get going. So one of our mottos is don't wait for perfect. There are people that we knew who were going to sail the world with us who are still in the UK because they're still waiting to figure everything out. They're never going to leave because they're waiting for it to be perfect.
Yeah, so, conditions will never be perfect.
They'll
never be perfect.
And I think the key essence to me is you've got to trust yourself. So whatever comes up, will you be able to figure out the answer to that? If the answer is yes, then just get underway and figure stuff out as you go along. It'll never be perfect. It's a flawed concept. So.
A bit like me starting this show. I wanted to do this for months on end, and I'll tell you what was stopping me. Because I've got a conservatory out back, which I was planning to convert to look more like a studio with great lighting, and but I don't have the internet connection's a bit patchy there, and so that was the one thing that was stopping me. I thought, yes, I could have fixed all that up and got it sorted, or I could just get started here, now, and not wait any longer, and then I could always shift to the conservatory in a few months' time when I'm ready. But why should a little thing like the location of my Wi-Fi box stop me?
It's funny.
Smaller example.
But it's funny, isn't it? The reasons we come up with to not move forward, and when you explode those myths, then it's like, well, why am I not moving forwards? Because they
okay. I've lit a candle in the background. That'll do. Okay, so lots of hairy moments. Were there any times when you're at sea thinking, God, what are we thinking of? What? Were there any kind of thoughts like that?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I just you mentioned I sailed around the world before, and so both times it's it was just great being out there, spending that time with the kids. I would say I'm far happier on water than I am on land. So
and what about any highlights? Just can you share with us, one or two really kind of wonderful? I bet there's hundreds of them, but just real kind of memories that are going to be etched in your mind forever from the trip.
Yeah, as you said, lots of them. Most of them involve the kids. So I remember as we were sailing across the Pacific that I was there with Bluebell, my oldest daughter. She was 9 at the time. And we were up on deck in the middle of the night, and we went up onto the bows of the boat, and we're the boat carving through through the water. There's just the most amazing stars in the sky, and it's calm conditions, and we're sailing fast, and things are just sort of going really well, and just sort of Bluebell and me just sort of looking up and sort of having a conversation about whether there's another parallel world out there, with another dad and her daughter sort of talking about what else was out there. And just the most amazing experiences like that. Just literally sharing the world with the kids.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. So you had an end date for the journey to end, did you? You knew when you were going to be finished, and because I remember at the beginning you said you made a plan, but you also made a plan for what you're going to be doing afterwards as well. So talk us through that a little bit.
I did share why that plan afterwards was so important for us.
Of course, yeah.
Because when I did this yacht race back in 2000, we had this incredible experience of 10 months going, sort of crashing off huge waves, and an amazing team of people. And I remember coming back from that, and 3 months afterwards, I remember finding myself sitting in the bottom of my dad's garden with a bottle of whiskey at 3 o'clock in the morning, because you have an amazing high when you get that, you crash down.
You hear that about people who return from the moon, don't you?
Absolutely, and people coming back from forces, people who've been out in theatres of war and things like that too. I think it's quite common.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always about planning what comes next. So in our vision statement that we had this placeholder, and we didn't quite know what it was, but we knew it was going to lead to other exciting things, because we didn't just want this to be a one-off adventure. Everyone says this is an adventure of a lifetime. And it's like, no, this is just the start of things.
Love it.
So, we knew that things were going to follow. But we gave ourselves 2 years, and that was in order that Bluebell, our oldest, could be back to start secondary school at the age of 11. So that was kind of what was sort of managing our time frame for us. But yeah, we knew other things were going to follow on afterwards. So.
Yeah, brilliant. And what did the children make of all this?
So it's interesting. I sat down with them a couple of days ago. So I've got some radio interviews coming up, And I was just going through different stories with them of what they remember from it. And right from the start, we involved the kids in the planning process and imagining the future that they wanted. So we created something called the Winner's Bible. And we're not religious, but in there it had pictures and things that the kids wanted to do. So we got them to imagine their world as well. So they wanted to go and meet other kids. They wanted to go and swim with dolphins, catch fish, play on desert islands. So they literally, all those things played out for them. And, they had one.
Mini vision boards, like mini visions.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was. So yeah, engaging, but actually, creating a family vision as well that everybody was involved in. So
love it. Yeah, I love making vision boards. My children, we manifested a trip to Disney World with making a vision, winning a trip to Disney World, should I add? So yeah, I think having a family vision is so powerful. I think doing this with your wife, your husband, is just amazing. I think when you both got the same clear vision, same goals, and having that as a family as well, that just must be, it's just extraordinary.
What's interesting, by the way, I'm just getting back to that vision thing, because I know this is a really core thing, but, is that beforehand, Nicola and I, we were trying to talk about things, but we were focusing on what we both wanted that was different. And all we ended up doing was having this conflict, because I wanted one thing and she wanted another thing. And where it all changed for us is we created a story. I always said, here's all the things that I want in life. Here's all the things that Nicola wanted in life. And we looked at what we had in common. And there were only a couple of little things here. And we dropped everything else from that. And we just created this narrative and this story around only the things that we shared in common. And that's what created the energy. It's that thing, you can't build on conflict. You can only build and create things where there's energy. So as a family team, that literally shifted stuff. And then that grew to include the kids and, what they wanted to do as well. So
brilliant. And how are they coping with life back on dry land?
Yeah, no, they're good. They're completely settled back into what they're doing, and we continue to have expeditions and adventures, and they love doing those. The kids are adaptable, right? I mean, everyone said to us they'll never settle back again. It's not a bit of it. I mean, kids adjust to anything. So
of course, yeah. So Caspar, what's next?
So the next thing is my book.
Of course. We were actually going to come round to this. So, and the book is out tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. I have got a link on Amazon. I'm going to have to post it in the comments afterwards.
Where the magic is.
I love it. Anything with magic, I just love. So tell us, so was that book always part of the vision?
So where the book came about was that I did a lot of blogging as we went round, and various people said to me, it's like, why don't you write a book? So when we were leaving Cape Town to sail to Brazil, I decided I was going to write a book. So I got up at 3 o'clock every morning, wrote 2,000 words a day. And by the time I got to Brazil, I had the first draft of the book. And then I went through the whole process of getting publishers. So Bloomsbury are the publisher of the book. And so that's come to be.
Did you use your whole visioning and planning to get a publisher on board? Was that the same process, or?
I think in that instance, I think I knew what my outcome was. I knew that I was going to publish a book, and I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So we ended up landing Bloomsbury, publish Harry Potter to do the book for us. And so we launched in the US about 6 weeks ago. We've been getting all sorts of #1 rankings in Amazon, and it's launched tomorrow, as you said. So it's
and here's the thing. So I always like to. So my big question is always, what's your big vision? You've already said this was just the beginning for you. So what is your big vision now, Caspar?
Okay. So my big vision now is it's a program that a brand program just launching, which is called The Brave You. And I believe that all of us have got a brave part inside of us. And I believe we can train ourselves to be more brave, to embrace uncertainty, and to go out there and find the things that are really, really important to us and our family. So my mission now is to inspire millions of people all around the world to put family first and say, what's the things that are really important to me and to my family, and then to help people to create the businesses, the income streams that can run without them, so they can go and do all those amazing things with family. Because, you know, what else there is there that's more important than that? You know, that whole thing, and people get to the end of their lives and what are they all the regrets? They didn't spend enough time with family. Well, put family first and then figure out how you're going to go and do that. So I want to sort of share what we've learned, because I think we've done some unusual things. So I want to, you know, help other people on that journey so that, you know, they can go and make their own magic happen. So.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. And reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, that fortune favors the brave. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's actually Sir Ranulph Fiennes wrote the foreword for the book, and that was the quote that he started with in there, actually. So
really? I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to be ordering my, actually, I should get a signed copy, really, shouldn't I? I'm going to order
it. I'll sign to the next event we meet at.
Perfect. Love it. Great. So, yeah, wishing you huge amounts of success with the book and the new venture, and any kind of like parting words of wisdom for people who'll be watching, who may be kind of thinking, do you know what, this sounds all very good for you, Caspar, but you know, maybe I'll save this for another lifetime.
Okay, yeah. So when I did the yacht race, the first one, I spent some time with Sir Che Blythe, who was the organizer of it. So I'll share some words for him. And he said these words to me. He said, Caspar, there will come a day when you're lying down looking at your toes. He said, just before you draw your final breath, you'll ask yourself, have I done everything that I want to do in life? He said, if the answer's no, you're going to be pretty brassed off. So stop messing around, work out what you want to do, and go and get on with it. And that's been my guiding force ever since. So for anyone listening, that's what I would encourage you to do as well. Work out what's truly important to you, to your family, put that front and center, and then figure out how you can engineer your business, your family, your finances, your business in order to make that work, because there's nothing more important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so happy for you. And yeah, and I know that it's going to hopefully get some juices flowing for some of the people watching today. Thank you so much for being my first guest. Loved having you on, and I'd love to hear feedback and comments from people watching. You know, what ahas has this sparked for you? What is possible? What could you go out there and just, because, you know, it took you 6 years, didn't it, from plan to...
Yeah, 5 years preparation and 2 years actually doing it.
Yeah, so yeah, sometimes these things don't happen overnight, but sometimes these things can happen very quickly too. But the important thing is to have that vision and to just get started, just like I did with this TV show today. Just get started.
I think you've done brilliant, brother. I love the show, by the way. I think you're going to go and do huge success with these, and I think you're going to have some fascinating guests hopefully will come through and share stories. So
I can't wait. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone watching. And I'll catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Right.